Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, the show where we unpack the most, exciting and sometimes bewildering changes happening right now. If you felt things moving really fast this past week, maybe especially with AI, well, you're definitely not alone. Yeah, it's a bit dizzying, isn't it? There's this huge excitement,
Mm,
but also, a real sense of apprehension. What's next?
exactly. And that's what we're digging into today on Tomorrow Unveiled. We're looking at the societal impact of emerging tech,
Yeah.
how it's reshaping work, education, even our basic economic ideas. This is really about helping you get future-proofed using insights from, well, the latest global developments.
Precisely. And our dedicated research team, they've just sifted through mountains of information, pulling out the key nuggets. Our mission today, it isn't just about listing facts. It's about unpacking the core findings, especially the stuff that keeps popping up across different sources, so you can really get the big picture.
Without getting totally overwhelmed.
Right. We want to explore the paradoxes, the opportunities, and, yeah, the very real challenges, too. Okay, so let's start with that core paradox you mentioned. Our research kept highlighting this tension. AI boosting productivity, but also threatening jobs. What's really going on there?
It's a fascinating push and pull, isn't it? On one side, you have this really optimistic story about augmentation. The data shows industries that are heavily using AI, they're seeing much higher revenue growth per employee, like 3 times higher.
3 times. Wow.
Yeah. And maybe counterintuitively, firms investing in AI, they're actually increasing employment overall by about 2% a year.
So it's not just cutting jobs then.
Not entirely, no. The core insight seems to be less about a simple job killer versus job creator thing, and more like a dynamic reshuffling, a reevaluation of what work actually
A
means.
reshuffling. I like that framing. So it's not just about doing things faster. It's changing the what of work. And we heard about real benefits for individual workers too, right? Getting time back.
Exactly. Take teachers, a great example. Our findings show many are getting back nearly 6 hours a week.
6 hours.
Yeah, but by using AI for things like grading papers, lesson planning, the admin stuff.
That's almost a full workday back.
It is. And that frees them up for the human stuff, more one-on-one time with students, deeper teaching. It's kind of rehumanizing the job in some ways.
That's interesting. Rehumanizing.
And it's spurring new roles, too. Things like prompt engineers, AI ethics consultants, human AI collaboration designers. These didn't really exist a few years ago.
So the augmentation picture sounds, well, pretty hopeful, actually.
If managed right, yes, it suggests our human skills could be amplified.
But there's always a but, isn't there?
Hey, yeah, there is. The research also points very clearly to the stark reality of automation.
Okay, so how do we square that? Augmentation here, automation there.
Well, this is where it gets a bit sobering. The consensus from the research points to AI potentially displacing up to 300 million jobs globally.
300 million, that's huge.
It is. And in places like the US and Europe, maybe 2/3 of all jobs could be exposed to some level of automation.
2/3.
Yeah. And we're not talking hypotheticals anymore. You've got major CEOs, Ford, JT Morgan Chase, openly saying they expect significant cuts in white-collar jobs.
So which jobs are most at risk right now?
Mostly routine cognitive and administrative tasks. Think data entry, a lot of clerical work, even bank tellers. One report we saw said nearly a quarter, 23.5% of U.S. companies have already replaced some workers with AI tools.
Okay, wow, a quarter already. So you mentioned earlier it's not a simple binary augmentation or automation. Is it more like a sequence?
That seems to be the thinking, yes. It's probably more of a temporal progression. What we're seeing now, this AI as a co-pilot augmentation, might very well lead to a future phase where AI is more like an autopilot.
Automation.
Co-pilot to autopilot, okay. The World Economic Forum talks about this massive churn expected by 2030, something like 170 million new jobs created.
Okay, that's positive.
But also 92 million jobs displaced globally. It's a massive reshuffling. As we said, it demands societies get really proactive about adaptation, constant adaptation.
Constant adaptation. That sounds exhausting, but necessary. Which brings us straight to education, doesn't it? How can schools possibly keep up with this level of churn?
Well, they're trying. It's definitely rapid response, but yeah, they're still playing catch up. AI is popping up in classrooms, doing things like, creating personalized learning paths for students, spotting knowledge gaps.
Tailoring resources, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And for teachers, it can streamline admin tasks, theoretically freeing them up for more, human interaction.
Theoretically. But is it working? What's the reality?
Well, here's the rub. The research found that while 9 out of 10 students want to learn more about AI,
Okay, they're eager.
a huge majority of educators, something like 87%, feel unprepared to actually teach it or integrate it effectively.
87%, that's a massive gap, almost a chasm, like you said.
It really is. Students are ready, teachers feel unequipped.
So what's being done? Are governments, companies stepping up to bridge that gap?
Thankfully, yes, we are seeing some significant efforts. The White House, for instance, has this AI in Education pledge. Over 60 organizations are involved, big names like Google, Microsoft committing resources for curricula for teacher training.
Okay, that's promising.
And Google.org specifically, they put up a $10 million grant. The aim is to train 200,000 K-12 teachers in AI skills.
10 million. 200,000 teachers. That's a serious commitment. Shows the urgency, I guess.
It really does. It signals that future-proofing the workforce, it starts way back in the classroom.
But even with these big initiatives, our research flags some worries, right? Particularly around data privacy.
Absolutely. That's a huge one. There are serious warnings about data protection rules like GDPR in Europe being broken if sensitive student info gets put into public AI tools.
Right, like just copying homework into a chatbot or something.
Exactly. We need really clear guidelines on handling that data safely. And beyond privacy, there's the equity issue.
Yeah, yes, the risk of making inequality worse.
Precisely. If some students don't have reliable access to the tech or good internet, AI could just widen the existing gaps. Making sure this transition is equitable, that's a major challenge. Technology amplifies things, good or bad.
It really does make your head spin, thinking about all this data, algorithms handling tasks. But the impact goes even further, doesn't it? Beyond just work and school.
Oh, definitely. We're starting to see conversations about completely new economic models, challenging the fundamentals.
How so? What kind of models are we talking about?
Well, one big idea gaining traction is this concept of an automated abundance economy.
Automated abundance. Sounds utopian.
A little, maybe. The vision is that AI and robotics get so good at producing goods and services that scarcity itself becomes, well, kind of obsolete.
Scarcity becomes obsolete. Wow.
It's a fundamental challenge to how our economies are structured now, potentially breaking the link between income and having a traditional job.
But I imagine that comes with its own issues.
Oh, absolutely. Massive dependencies, like the huge energy demands we'll probably get to later, and just a radical shift needed in societal values.
So if machines do the work, how do people, live? This sounds like we're universal basic income, UBI.
Exactly. It's tightly linked. Proponents see UBI as a sort of dividend, a share of the wealth generated by all this collective automation.
A dividend from the robots.
Basically, yeah. Guaranteeing everyone access to essentials, freeing people up from the need to work for income.
Sounds appealing on the surface.
Yeah.
But what are the catches? What do the critics say?
Well, the big ones are cost and practicality. Critics point to UBI trials, like in Finland and Canada, that were canceled, suggesting it's just too expensive to scale up.
Okay, the cost hurdle.
But there's a deeper concern, too. What about the non-economic parts of work?
Like identity,
Right.
purpose, community.
Exactly. For many people, work provides those things, not just a paycheck. Can UBI really replace that? It's not just an economic question, it's almost existential. What does society look like if labor isn't the main source of value or identity?
That's a profound question we're only just starting to wrestle with.
And underpinning all this, as our research team flagged, is that energy issue. A stark warning, really.
Yeah.
By 2030, just data centers could use as much electricity as, like, all of India?
As much as India. That's staggering. How do grids cope? What about emissions?
Huge questions. It really challenges the whole abundance vision without massive clean energy investment.
Okay, so huge shifts in work, education, economics. But who is actually steering all this change? Our research mentioned a big governance gap. What did the team find about how different places are trying to regulate AI?
It's definitely not a unified approach. It's very fragmented, actually. You see really different philosophies globally.
Like how? Give us an example.
We'll take the United States. It's kind of a patchwork. You have federal efforts, but they often seem to bump up against state-level rules. Like in Texas, they passed Traga 2.0. It's described as lean, focuses mainly on how the government uses AI, but it specifically pulls back from regulating private companies on things like, say, discriminatory impacts in hiring.
Interesting. So Texas is more hands-off for businesses. How does that compare to, say, Europe?
It's a sharp contrast.
Yeah.
The European Union is going for a unified, what they call human-centric framework.
Human-centric.
Yeah, prioritizing collective well-being, worker rights. Their big thing is the AI Act, which they hope will set a global standard. Plus, they emphasize social dialogue, making sure workers have a say. It's a much more comprehensive, protective approach.
And what about elsewhere? Asia, for instance.
Often it seems driven more by pragmatic economic competitiveness. You see massive public-private partnerships focused on skills. India's pushing to train 1 million AI professionals by 2026. Kenya's doing national AI training for public servants. It's about building capacity quickly.
So different regions are almost building different operating systems for the AI economy.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Fundamentally different socio-technical operating systems. It's a crucial divergence.
And beyond the big regulations, there are immediate ethical challenges popping up, right? What were the main friction points our research identified?
Algorithmic bias is a huge one. The risk that AI systems learn and amplify existing societal biases from their training data?
So they discriminate, even if not designed to.
Exactly, even without malicious intent. Then there's data privacy, which we touched on with schools. Using AI in sensitive areas raises big questions about consent, about commercial use of our personal info.
Like that UK warning about pasting student work into public AIs?
Precisely. Breaching rules like GDPR. And beyond that, organizations are struggling. How do you tell human work from AI-assisted work? And employees are starting to push back, demanding a voice in how AI is rolled out. It's becoming a real workplace issue.
Yeah, you can see why it's not just tech anymore. It's deeply societal. Okay, so this transition, it's clearly not smooth. It's creating friction. One of the biggest seems to be this widening skills gap. What did the numbers show there?
The numbers are pretty startling. Skills for AI-related jobs are changing something like 66% faster than for other jobs.
66% faster?
Yeah. It's creating what the research calls an expertise supply crisis. And get this, there's currently a 56% wage premium for workers who have specific AI skills.
Wow, 56%. That immediately creates a kind of two-tiered system, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A clear divide. And this skills gap hits different groups differently.
How so?
Well, the data suggests automation risk isn't evenly spread. For example, in the U.S., almost 80%, 79% of employed women are in roles considered high risk for automation. Compare that to 58% of men.
That's a big difference.
It is. And older workers often haven't had the same access to digital skills training, making transitions harder. It really raises questions about equitable reskilling. Who gets left behind?
A stark reminder, yeah. Okay, zooming out again to the whole economy. Our research flagged systemic risks, especially if middle-class jobs decline. Why is that so critical?
It boils down to basic economics, really. In the U.S., middle-income households drive about 70% of consumer spend.
70%. The engine of the economy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So if those jobs erode, if wages stagnate because of automation, you risk a collapse in demand. Companies can make stuff, but who buys it? It's this potential vicious cycle automation without demand. Keeps economists awake at night.
I bet. And then there's the energy issue we touched on earlier. Seems like a fundamental constraint.
It really is. The energy footprint of AI is just huge and growing fast. Those projections data centers using as much power as India by 2030 are alarming.
Tripling their usage.
Yeah. It puts massive strain on power grids, increases greenhouse gas emissions significantly. You can't really have this automated abundance if you can't power it sustainably. It's a major bottleneck.
And finally, let's not forget the human element in all this. Work is more than just money, right? Identity, purpose.
Absolutely crucial and often overlooked. What happens if large numbers of people are sustained economically, maybe through UBI or something, but they feel adrift socially?
Are we seeing signs of that already?
We're starting to. Trends like AI fatigue, people feeling overwhelmed, this desire for tech decluttering, the constant change, the constant interaction, it takes a mental toll. If we don't find ways to address those non-economic functions of work, community, identity, purpose, the very fabric of societal well-being could be threatened. It's about who we are, not just what we do.
Thinking about new ways to find purpose. That's deep.
Yeah.
Okay, this is probably a good moment to pause. If you're finding this insightful, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe here on YouTube to Tomorrow Unveiled, and definitely hit that notifications bell so you don't miss our future updates.
And if you're listening on a podcast service, maybe Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating and review for Tomorrow Unveiled. It genuinely helps us reach more people.
It really does. Okay, so looking ahead then, we've covered a lot of ground, the good, the bad, the uncertain. What's the overall outlook? Where do we go from here?
Well, the evidence, even just from recent developments, paints a really complex picture, but the trend is clear. This AI transformation isn't sci-fi anymore, it's happening now. We're seeing the productivity gains and the displacement. The key thing our research team emphasizes is that the path forward isn't set in stone. It really depends on the choices we make now. Policymakers, business leaders, educators, everyone.
And the research pointed to two main potential scenarios, right?
That's right. Broadly speaking, a managed transition or a disruptive drift.
Okay, managed transition sounds better. What does that involve?
That's the optimistic path. Proactive policies, strong public-private partnerships, really updating our social safety nets for this new reality. The goal is to distribute the gains from AI broadly, achieve shared prosperity.
So AI benefiting everyone, that's the aim. And the alternative, disruptive drift.
That's the risk if we don't act decisively. Inaction leads to deeper inequality, economic stagnation, maybe even social instability. The stakes are incredibly high.
So how do we steer towards that managed transition? What are the concrete recommendations from the research?
The consensus points to clear actions for different groups. For policymakers, they need agile governance rules that can adapt quickly. They need to reinvent social contracts.
Reinvent social contracts, like what?
Things like exploring portable benefits that aren't tied to a specific job, lifelong learning accounts, maybe targeted basic income pilots, and huge investments in skills development. It's about rethinking the fundamentals.
Okay, what about business leaders? What's their role?
The call is for a human-centric AI strategy. Focus on using AI to augment workers, not just replace them. Take real ownership of reskilling their workforce and be proactive about ethics. Set strong guidelines for how AI is used.
So responsible deployment, augmentation first. Makes sense. And educators.
They have a massive task. Redesigning curricula so students are AI native, embedding AI literacy across all subjects, not just tech classes, using AI tools themselves to free up time for teaching, and promoting lifelong learning with flexible programs. It's preparing people for a whole new world.
It really feels like we're at a pivotal moment in history, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A historic inflection point.
Yeah.
The productivity gains from AI are real, they're powerful. But how those gains get distributed, that's what will define the next chapter.
It's a collective responsibility then,
Yeah.
guiding this technology towards benefiting society as a whole.
Ensuring technology serves humanity, not the other way around. That's the core challenge.
So it leaves us all with a big question to ponder, doesn't it? As AI takes on more tasks we used to call work, what will you redefine as your purpose, your contribution, your unique human value in this future that's unfolding right now?
We'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts on all this. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your podcast app, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think about future-proofed societal impact of emerging technology.
Your insights really do help us all navigate what's coming. Thanks for joining us on Tomorrow Unveiled.